Hello, my friends, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. I know it has once again been a while, but I am working on a few different things. For those of you who don't follow me on Twitter, I'm kind of working on joining the branding of my streaming channel and this here video channel. I'm going through a few different thought processes, and I need to get some graphics done. I have an idea for a podcast that I need to get an intro to, just that kind of thing. I will be renaming my streaming channel. It is currently called Horror Amarada, and I don't like that sometimes people don't know who they're always talking about when they're talking about me in other places. A lot of people here know me as Critic or Abby or Abysmal Critic, and a lot of other people know me as Horror Amarada, and I would like to help everybody think of the same person when they're talking about either of those names. So I think I'll probably be switching up my intro a little bit so that people have some idea, that there's some hints there. I'm sure you don't want to hear the whole detailed ins and outs of it all, but I wanted to say something so that people know what's going on. My streaming channel will be renamed, and as soon as I have some artwork for that, I will reveal that renaming and everything. That way, people know where to find me and how to find me and who I am. Because if you're going to work at this, other than actually making the videos and stuff, which I know I'm sucking at so bad lately, there is a little conversation I wanted to have today. There's been a few things going on in the ether about game prices and development teams and blah, blah, blah. Gabe Newell from fucking Gearbox saying some retarded shit about real fans being able to afford the game if they really want to, and the fact that he has no control over the price of the game. Then on the Offensive Charming podcast, which I am a co-host on every Tuesday, my other co-host Jazz brought this article from the game developer, which is titled "The Deprofessionalization of Video Games," was on full display at PAX East. And I'm not even going to try to read this article because we read it on the podcast. There will be a link to that down in the description, just in case anybody's interested in subscribing. But the gist of the entire article was really that this person is terrified of the actual decentralization of gaming, about the fact that these large teams are going to be torn apart and need to be torn apart for the gaming industry to survive, that it is being proven currently that small teams with smaller budgets who work more intimately together produce far better games than these large structures. Now, there is an element of chance with these smaller developers in that if their game doesn't hit, it just doesn't hit. A large developer can actually take a hit of a game that doesn't succeed very well because they've had other massive hits that are still sustaining them. But the problem is at this point in time, they're not producing massive hits anymore. They're doing, at the best, in most cases, they're doing okay. And while okay is, okay, because of the sizes of their budgets, because of the sizes of their teams, okay is not enough to sustain them. Instead, they are kind of stuck, slowly draining all their back funds away until they have to stop and restructure, which we've slowly been seeing over time in terms of these massive layoffs going on in the game industry. And those layoffs are not going to be stopping anytime in the near future. When you have teams this large, you end up with layoffs for two reasons. The first is to get rid of the people who are already been there for a while and make far more money than the inexperienced people who are there, so that they can clean them out and bring in, 2 inexperienced people, 3 inexperienced people to replace the one professional that they had on their team. And 2, because they really need to just get rid of some fat. And especially after the whole COVID time, the extra money they had, the hiring sprees they went on, the number of people they just packed into roles they don't need, the consultancy firms they hired that they actually didn't need, but someone was someone's friend, and so they gave them some money so that they could throw them a job. These things all added up to ridiculously large budgets. And now we're seeing with the success of these smaller games, these smaller studios, that we don't need that. And in fact, it gets in the way. I think a good way to look at it is These large AAA studios, when they're building a game, are currently playing a game of telephone with their games. What you have way up at the front is 5 or 6 people who are looking at the big screen. They can see the big picture, they know where everything goes, and they have an idea of where everything should be. Now, they turn around and they tell the person behind them. Because each of these people at the front, you probably have a head developer, a head artist, a head voice actor, someone heading the music department or something like that. But they turn around and tell the person behind them, hey, this is what we need. And then that person turns around and tells the person behind them, hey, this is what they need. And, it continues back 4 or 5 levels until it hits that bottom person who actually does the work. And by the time it gets to that person, he's not entirely sure what they mean. And the portion he has to work off, because you got to remember that it also branches back as it reaches back, because take, for example, just designing a chair in a game. You have the person who builds the structure of the chair. You have the person who makes the textures. You have someone who adds the lighting. That is kind of how it works in these larger companies, because you have very specialized teams that are very large and don't actually communicate well with each other. They work within their own group. They send that information upward. That information is then shared around, and then that moves further up the chain. That slows everything down, and it really stamps out creativity. Because when you have this chair that needs to be made, if you really want that to be a really cool chair, you want those people to either all be the same person working on that one chair, or you want those 3 people, 4 people, however many people really go into each element of the chair, sitting together so that they can discuss how that chair can be changed based on each person's specialties. Now, with the decentralization of gaming, a lot of those people aren't going to be needed. They're not going to have jobs. This article in specific is very concerned about artists and voice actors and musicians, because apparently he feels that since they're not going to be given paid jobs at the studios, they're going to end up being more freelancers, kind of like what Expedition 33 did, where Sandfall Studio went out and found a composer on SoundCloud of all things. And he made one of the best soundtracks that I've ever heard. The reality is someone like this is very afraid of the fact that people with talent are going to be the ones that are able to rise to the top. When you read this article, which will be linked in the description if you want to go and read this article, you can hear his concern not for people who are good at their jobs, but in fact for people who are okay at their jobs, who really don't have talent but want to develop video games, or just want to develop video games for whatever reason. We've seen many people currently in the industry who don't actually want to develop video games because they want to play video games. They want to develop video games because they feel like it gives them control over the media that other people ingest, and thus they are able to push their ideas out. Now, I don't generally like those kinds of video games, but I think if you want to form a studio where that is the whole thing that you do, go right ahead. I won't be buying your game, and I likely won't be encouraging others to buy your game. But I don't think that there's anything that really should keep you from doing that, because the nature of the market in and of itself will keep you from doing that too very well. So realistically, I'm relying on them being very bad at their jobs to begin with to keep them from really being too profitable. I understand a lot of people really would like to just saying, no, you can't, because I guess it makes it easier for them. But as someone who doesn't suffer from a lot of fear of missing out, I am all for people making things I'm not going to play, because I am very good at selecting the things I want to play. And if we could all do that, then things would get a lot better really fast. But that's not so much an issue now with inflation in the economy and people having less actually disposable income. It's really a bigger problem when people have tons of disposable income to just toss at games, like during COVID, for example. But we won't get into the economics lesson. As these smaller studios rise and the large studios fall, this person apparently feels that there is going to be a loss of some kind, not really understanding that this really is going to benefit those people who work hard and have talent. Because again, he doesn't seem to think that that is the most important thing. He seems to think that if something's making money, they should just hire a bunch of people and then, give them jobs, because everybody deserves a job. And honestly, I think one of the things about this article that pisses me off the most is the way this person very much talks down on these smaller developers, calling them not real businesses, by implying that only AAAs are real businesses, by saying that they can't be professional. It's extremely frustrating that he just doesn't seem to understand that it's not the size of the studio that matters, but the passion that these people put in. I mean, he's right in that writers are going to see less available jobs because most of these smaller studios aren't going to want 9-person writing teams. Expedition 33 had 3 writers. It is better if there are fewer people involved so that they can communicate effectively and actually have space to be creative. On the podcast, I actually pointed out that one of the biggest problems in Marvel movies today is that there are so many people writing these movies that it feels like literally just a bunch of scenes strung together. That you had 50 people, probably not that many, but you had a couple teams sitting together. Each one wrote their own scene, and they kind of strung them together as opposed to wrote a story, a smooth flowing story. And you can really tell when something is more written scene by scene. They had this idea they wanted to see, or they wanted to do this thing. They had this fight they wanted. Because then you make up reasons why this thing happens, as opposed to making up fully developed characters with motivations and they do things. Instead, things just happen because that's what you wanted to happen. And in video games has really been getting a lot like that too. You know, stories have been gotten watered down, characters haven't been fully fleshed out. And that's because nobody really sits and thinks about these characters. They're too busy trying to get any piece of their idea into the game so that they can say, hey, look, Mom and Dad, I did that, even though it was buried under the work of 5 other people. But, at the same time, just because each game will have fewer writers doesn't mean that there will necessarily be fewer writing jobs. Now, how AI will affect everything is an entirely separate issue. But if you have more smaller studios popping up, you could have a number of smaller jobs popping up that people could take and make money from. You're also going to have an issue with the people who are really good at it constantly getting jobs, and people who aren't so good at it not getting as many jobs. The people who are okay at it will probably get some jobs too, just because the people who are really good at it aren't going to be able to do every job in the world. So some things will fall to the more okay people, and that's good too. That is not a bad thing. Higher quality content, I think, is what everybody very much wants right now. And with a decentralized gaming market, we will see more of that. Now, some of it might be harder to find too, because let's face it, shovelware is really easy to create, really easy to pump out, and wading through it is a pain in the ass. That is one thing Steam really has going for it, is that it does seem to have a really good system built into it for getting games in front of people, for letting people see what's out there. You can search type of game, little algorithms with their discoverability lists and so on. It helps people find things. And I do think it would be nice if these kind of conventions went back the way they were once upon a time, where it was gamers going to see what developers had to show us, as opposed to what it became just before COVID killed them, which was game journalists going to see what the developers wanted to pay them to promote, and then them turning around and telling us about it. I would really like to see game cons become more like anime cons, to be entirely honest, because that would be fun. I think I would love to go to an actual video game convention. Before E3 became almost entirely inaccessible to your common person, I would have loved to have gone to it. But at that point in time, I didn't have the money to be able to make that kind of trip, nor did I understand how it worked. Having gone to a few cons in my life now, I'm sure there's probably some kind of video game convention out there that we could go to, but I would have to sit down and actually do the research now. After COVID, I'm not sure how many are still out there. If you know of any, go ahead, leave them down in the comments. Who knows, maybe I can plan a trip for next year or something, because I do think that would be really super cool. Sorry. But we are very much in a place of flux right now. And I am still excited to see where things are going. We have so many things coming down the line that this person who wrote this article is terrified. Because much like how it's going to impact the artists, writers, audio, music, it's going to impact the journalists the most. Because who needs them anymore, really? There's an upheaval coming down the pike for all sorts of video game related professions. And I'm here for it. I'm very excited for it. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are. I am very interested in hearing them. Do you think the deprofessionalization of gaming is a bad thing? Or are you also interested in seeing where that will take us, where that opens us up to experience new things in the future, to get new media in the future? If you have any ideas that you would like to see me implement on the channel while I'm in the midst of all this changing things, please feel free to let me know that in the comments as well, because I'm definitely interested in ideas. I will also be leaving my Discord in the description, and I will make sure that my channel link, my streaming channel link, still name unchanged at this point in time, is down there as well. But I will let you guys know in the community posts when more things are going to happen. For now, I'm trying to figure out a schedule that works well for streaming and videos, because honestly, I didn't realize until I started streaming Expedition 33 so much how much I really missed streaming. And I want to do more of that again, so it's going to take a bit of balancing and a couple of ideas here and there that I might have to pull in, but we will see about that in the future. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you really enjoyed it, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell. If you really liked it, feel free to share it with others. I'd love to hear what they think too, so drop your thoughts in the comments below. A special thanks to the channel members for their amazing support. You are the best. Interested in joining them? Check out the description for more info, and I will catch you later.